how do we prove, right? You need to prove that you actually want to be a physician and you aren't just going, okay, what's next? The Old PreMeds Podcast, session number 337. Welcome to the Old PreMeds Podcast. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray, your host here every week, where I take your non-traditional questions and answer them here on the podcast. The best place to go over to premedhangout.com, ask your question, use the hashtag OPM question, and we'll pull those and ask them, or get them answered here on the podcast. Before we jump in, though, to our great question today, I want to talk about the MCAT Minutes brought to you by Blueprint MCAT. Did you know that one of the best things that you can do as a non-traditional student is making sure that your schedule is planned out? As a non-trad, your schedule is typically a little bit fuller than potentially a traditional student with family responsibilities, work responsibilities, all of your normal pre-med stuff that traditional students are doing as well. And you just got a lot on your plate. Use the free study planner tool over at blueprintmcat.com. Make sure that your MCAT prep schedule is prioritized and just dialed in to make sure that you are as effective and efficient as possible. Again, that's blueprintmcat.com for that study planner tool. Our question today comes from someone who thought they were going down a different career path and stumbled a little bit. They ask, how would you approach an application for a student that was academically dismissed from law school after their first year and is now switching focus to medical school? How will medical schools view my application with this dismissal, and what would they need to see from me? So this is a tough one, right? Because this student was going down one path and then decided, oh, shoot. Well, number one, didn't decide, right? They were academically dismissed, but then decided, oh, maybe I want to be a doctor. The first question in my mind is, are you sure, right? You went down the law school path to begin with. Why now medicine? Is it just like, oh, well, I got kicked out of law school, so now I'm just going to go do medicine? That's the next kind of high prestige professional career out there in the country, in the US at least. So that's what I'm going to go do, right? We always joke about the South Asian, right? The Indian culture, the Jewish culture. It's like always doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? Those are the things that you can do. It's a very immigrant kind of story. Doctor, lawyer, engineer. And so, okay, lawyer's off the list. We got kicked out of law school. And now, okay, med school's up. So that's going to be my first critique is, how do we prove, right? You need to prove that you actually want to be a physician and you aren't just going, okay, what's next? That's number one. Number two is really owning and telling the story about why you got kicked out of law school. And whether it's law school or some other school or undergrad, whatever story it is that you need to tell about your struggle, step number one always is ownership. You have to own the struggle. Now, your ownership may be, you know what? I made the decision to go to law school for all of the wrong reasons, and I hated it. I knew as soon as I was there that I was not meant to be a lawyer. And instead of stepping up and quitting because my parents wouldn't let me, because I didn't want to feel like a failure, because whatever your authentic story is, I pushed forward and I failed, right? And so I kind of like self-sabotaged almost is basically what that was. And that could be the answer, right? Is I just self-sabotaged. I didn't want to be there. I knew this wasn't for me. And so I failed out, right? Maybe that's the answer. It's not a great answer, but whatever your authentic story is, where you're able to take ownership without placing blame on others. So that's the big thing. And then the third thing is going to be academic ability, right? You are now labeled an academic risk. You failed out of professional school, out of law school. Med school, I can't compare med school to law school. I've only been to one. There are a lot more lawyers in the world, I think. That's a just random off the top of my head kind of thing of like, I think there are more lawyers, at least like entering law school and graduating law school every year than med school. So maybe it's easier to get into law school. I don't know. I'm just randomly talking here. Right? So I don't know if law school is easier than med school. Let's assume they're exactly the same. Med schools are going to want to know, how are you not going to repeat your earlier failures here in med school, right? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. And so that's going to be a big part of this process. Now, my assumption is that you weren't a pre-med major, right? Going into law school, poli-sci, econ, whatever, right? Business, whatever it was that you studied, you probably have to go back and do prereqs. And that's where you're going to have to prove yourself academically, is getting A's in the Gen Chem, Gen Bio, OChem, Biochem, Physics, all of those classes. Your goal is to get as close to a 4.0 as possible to prove to medical schools, I'm not an academic risk. I actually like the sciences. This is my passion. My end goal is to be a doctor. I'm certain of it. Right? And that's basically the story that you're going to have to tell throughout everything, your classes, your activities, your essays, your interview prep. And this is where potentially having one of our advisors at Medical School HQ can help really hone that story. The majority of students that we work with are non-traditional students who need to hone their message, especially around this kind of stuff. So if that's something in the cards, I would love for you to check out medicalschoolhq.net, whether it's one-on-one advising or our group advising, which is a lot more affordable, called Application Academy. Go check that out. Again, medicalschoolhq.net. So ultimately, the question of like, what are med schools going to want to see? They're going to want to see passion for medicine. They're going to want to see academic ability. They're going to want you in whatever way possible you can prove that you're not going to be an academic risk. And they're going to want to make sure that you are sure that this is what you want to do, right? You went down one path already. That didn't work out. You're going down another path, and they're going to want to make sure that this is the right path for you, that you're certain of it, as certain as all of us can be in this life, and just go from there. And so I'm a big fan of time heals all wounds, and this is one of those things where the more time you put between being academically dismissed from law school and applying to medical school, and hopefully during that time you're getting activities, you're proving yourself academically, and you're honing that message that ultimately I think you can be successful applying to medical school and becoming a physician. I wish you the best of luck. Again, medicalschoolhq.net/advising if you would like some help with your applications and honing that message, whether you're this student or any other student on this journey to applying to medical school. Again, that's medicalschoolhq.net/advising. And don't forget to check out our sponsor, BlueprintMCAT.com today. Sign up for that free account and use that amazing study planner tool. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time here on the Old PreMeds Podcast.